What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. We are back on our 1/12 scale figure model here of MegaManX second armor version, and today we're going to push on, and I'm hoping to go ahead and get the figure all wrapped up and see what we can do next episode for the base. So let's go ahead and jump in here. As you can see, we have half Mega Man built. We have the arms, the torso, the helmet, all that good stuff. We've got our LEDs in there. We've got some power cables hanging down from his hip area. So now we have to come back and figure out how these go down through the legs and then eventually into the base. So we have a little bit of work to do, and I think that's what we're going to start off with first here. We're going to figure out how these legs go together. So let's go ahead and grab the instruction manual, take the right leg only. We're going to test fit. We're going to figure out some nice wire pathing through all the joints and the different armor plates, and then we'll dry fit everything together and see how it goes. If I can get this to work, I think we'll be in really good position to go ahead and then copy exactly what we did here on the left side. Then we can get this thing all nicely painted up and go from there. So let's go ahead and jump into our first time lapse, guys. Lots of work to do today. Let's go ahead and get this party started. Alright everybody, so we are back, and after a little bit of some trial here, we ended up figuring out a good path for the wire through the right leg. So let me go ahead and kind of walk you through what I did. First off, starting up at the hip joint, I went ahead and drilled a hole down through that hip joint, but I went ahead and I bypassed the actual polycap. I made sure not to affect that, so it's actually on the outside of the polycap, in between the polycap and the inner wall of the hip joint. So there's a hole that goes straight down through there, just big enough for the wire. And then as you can see, the hip joint fits right up inside, so no problem. The wire comes out unobstructed. And then we're going to go ahead and place it down through the two openings I drilled in the main leg area. And that's going to be a fairly simple process, just to slip this right down through there. I made the holes big enough to accommodate the wires to have a little bit of wiggle room. So then we can go ahead and just keep feeding that wire through and moving that part straight up the wire until we get to the joint. and then we just slip this together. I did a little bit of some additional sanding on the inside of that joint just to make sure I'm not going to catch the wire on anything, and yeah, so far so good on that. So then the last part is the lower portion of the leg, and again, this was a little tricky because I had to drill through a couple different areas and sandwich in between some armor plates for that kneecap joint. But as you can see, we can go ahead and fit this down through the top here. And you know what, we might as well just pull the armor plates off just to make sure that we have everything lined up correctly. So pull that one off and we can see it kind of poke out. We can grab our tweezers here, just grab that wire and pull it all the way through. So we have that, and then again, we can just put that armor plate back on. And once that is nicely snapped together, we can then slot it up into the upper portion of the leg, and I'll show you guys how that looks. It was a little hard getting that wire through that joint right there at the kneecap, but we ended up getting that all squared away. Go ahead and slip joint that together. And then lastly, just for the bottom portion of the foot, and I did actually drill one hole right through the sole of his shoe. And I'm going to go ahead and just slip this down right through that opening. And then we can just go ahead and feed this up and attach the foot here to the lower portion of the leg. This is actually a nice little slip joint right here, so that should go right on and keep our cable nice and tight. And there we go. We've got Mega Man with the right leg all nicely wired in. And I got to say, that was not easy to do, but we were able to get everything kind of squared away, so we know kind of how to do this. So I'm going to copy this exact same method there on the left leg, get everything test fitted together, get all the wiring hooked up, get everything ready to rock, and then I'll be back and we'll see how it goes. So hopefully this is going to be great. All right, let's get back into that time lapse. Let's push on. Let's finish up that other leg. Alright everybody, so we are back, and just to give you a real quick close-up here, you can see the wire comes up through the bottom of the foot along the inner portion of the leg, then it jogs over through the kneecap, up the outer portion of the leg, up into that hip joint, and then there's a small opening between the polycap and the actual joint itself. We went ahead and took that wire up through that hip joint into the torso, and then eventually made its way up to the neck area where it feeds the buster cannon, and then of course the helmet lights. So you can see we go ahead and plug this into our battery pack, everything lights up, looks pretty snazzy, so I'm happy with that. I think we're on the right track. But now, of course, we have to come back, and I gotta tell you, the joint down here in the foot and the leg connection point is terrible. It keeps popping loose, and I can't really get it to stay where I want it, so that's a little bit annoying. And now we have to go ahead and basically take everything else apart to go ahead and start doing some painting, because we need to go ahead and paint all the armor plating and all of the joints and everything in there. We need to make sure to come back, prime it, paint it, the works. So that's the first step, is I need to basically undo everything I just did, which is a little bit annoying, but hey, you got to do it to get this thing looking good. And then we're going to eventually come back, prime everything, paint everything, and then once that's done, we can reassemble and restring that wire. So it shouldn't be too bad, just one step at a time, just a bit labor intensive, that's all. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the same paints as I did before on the outer armor parts. Some of these areas we can actually leave attached, and I think that's going to be probably a better idea than to take everything apart, because I want to come back in and I want to actually glue some of these seams together. So for the legs, we're just going to go ahead and separate each of the 3 pieces. We're going to keep the hip joint, we're going to keep that little sheath between hip and lower portion of the leg, and then the bottom portion like shin area, knee area there for that lower leg, that's going to be all separate, and we can come back and just leave it on the wire and airbrush it and prime it, should be fine. I'll use a little bit of Mr. Cement S to make sure that these seam lines are nice and secure. Then we can come back once that's dry and we can go ahead and fair those in, add a little bit of super glue, sand it down, prime it, paint it, everything like that. So I think we're on the right track for sure. So let's go ahead and jump into our last time lapse. This is going to be a long one, guys, because we have to do a lot of part fitting. We have to go ahead and do a lot of priming, a lot of painting, and then get that final assembly back in there, touch up anything where we need to touch up, and then of course hit it with the gloss coat. Let's keep it going, guys. One last push, and I think we'll have a finished MegaManX. All right, everybody, we are back, and the Mega Man figure is all together. It is painted, it is glossed, it is looking fine. I'm loving it. It's awesome. But of course, we're not done with it yet because we do have to come in and eventually do a little bit of some weathering. But let me go ahead and show you what we have so far, and here he is. As you can see, we have him completely gloss coated. We've got our power wires hanging out of each foot. The wires are tucked up inside. You can't see them, which is amazing. All the joints still operate, even though some of them are a little wonky and don't really want to hold necessarily. But everything is looking pretty snazzy. We do have a couple of gaps in the very back that I just could not get closed, but luckily they're so tiny you're not really going to notice them unless you look really, really close. Get you a quick zoom in here and you can see it is very glossy, but that's okay. We will eventually kind of tone that down. We do have our crystals, of course, in there with the Buster Cannon and the head helmet unit as well. We did not light the bottom feet thrusters because what's the point? He's going to be standing on top of them, so you wouldn't really see him. The wires do run up the leg itself into the hip joint and then up through the torso into the neck where everything powers Buster Cannon and the helmet lights. I'm very surprised I got this all to work. Everything fits in there and we still have a little bit of posability. Articulation is a little bit lessened because of the wires and the joints and whatnot. But then again, articulation would have been difficult on this model anyway because some of these joints just do not want to stay together. Ultimately though, I love the look of this model and it's all painted up, it's glossed, and we are ready for next episode where I think we're going to go ahead and finish up the model, build the base, get it mounted, and we will be done. So yeah. Looking forward to that for sure. But that is it for today, guys. Mega Man figure is looking fantastic. Next episode, we'll tone it down with a little bit of a semi-flat coat. We'll add in a little bit of panel liners here and there to pop some of the seams. And I think we'll be ready to go ahead and build up that base and get this thing mounted. So until then, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. We'll see you back here on the next episode of Sci-Fi Wednesdays for episode number 6 of MegaManX Second Armor. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.